JayZ and Diddy and a teenager, 13-year-old teenager.
Right.
What did you feel about just that whole thing, man?
As much as people feel like I haven't had issues with Puffy. I don't like him like that. Like, I don't like things that he would do. But Jay definitely not that.
50 Cent isn't just stirring the pot anymore. He's flipping the entire table. What started as vague jabs and playful trolling has now escalated into a full-blown exposé, targeting some of the most powerful figures in the entertainment world.
It hasn't even been a full week since the shocking new sexual assault allegations against JayZ have come out, and already we are seeing quite the reaction from some pretty high-profile people. Let's see what some celebrities had to say about Sean Carter's legal development and breaking down the absolutely disturbing and bombshell claims against JayZ, Sean Carter, in that federal sexual assault lawsuit. An unnamed Jane Doe is accusing the rapper and business mogul of raping her at a VMA's after party back in 2000 when she was just 13 years old. A party thrown by none other than Sean Diddy Combs, who she says also sexually assaulted her that night. In fact, she claims in her amended complaint, which now lists JayZ as the defendant, when it was first filed in October, by the way, he was only labeled as Celebrity A, but now he's been identified as Sean Carter, JayZ. But in the complaint, it states, Combs then threw plaintiff toward a wall, causing plaintiff to fall. Plaintiff got up and stumbled, at which point Combs grabbed her again and threw her on the bed. At that point, Carter began removing plaintiff's clothes as she grew more and more disoriented. The complaint says that JayZ then raped this teenager, and then Diddy proceeded to rape her as well. And by the way, this allegedly was in a bedroom while an unnamed female celebrity watched the assault. And this Jane Doe has sued both men for this alleged assault under the Gender-Motivated Violence Protection Act, which provides a look-back window to sue for claims that would otherwise be too old, barred by a statute of limitations issue. It just has to be a violent act that was motivated by someone's gender. So here the idea is that she was an underage girl, she couldn't consent. And remember, this all comes as Sean Combs is sitting in the MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center, on federal sex crimes charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. That he operated a criminal enterprise that engaged in a campaign of abusing women and using illegal methods to coerce people to engage in prolonged sex performances with male sex workers. Reacting to this JayZ news. No, celebrities have been reacting to it as well. And I think a good place to start would be with rapper 50 Cent. Why? Why him? Because he has already been quite vocal during the Sean Combs legal saga. For instance, after the raids by federal agents on Combs' properties months ago, before his arrest, 50 Cent posted on Instagram, "Now it's not Diddy do it, it's Diddy done. They don't come like that unless they got a case." And he has posted several memes mocking Combs' legal troubles. He also shared a video from someone on social media that called Combs too freaky for society. And when Combs was officially arrested, he took to Instagram. He posted a picture of him and Drew Barrymore and wrote, "Here I am, keeping good company with @the Drew Barrymore Show, and I don't have 1,000 bottles of lube at the house." Obviously a reference to the amount of lubricant and baby oil that prosecutors revealed were recovered from Sean Combs' properties. And in fact, I should also tell you that 50 Cent is reportedly working on a Netflix documentary about Combs' legal troubles. But when it comes to JayZ, what did he say? He said a few things, or he did a few things. So first, I should tell you that there doesn't appear to be any love loss between the two of them, because back in the day, the two had a beef.
And at the center of it all, JayZ, quiet, calculated, and always seemingly above the chaos. But according to 50 Cent, that's just part of the illusion. Because behind that billionaire branding and polished image lies a connection to something much darker. Something tied directly to Diddy and the secret parties that have come under fire in the most disturbing ways. Let's rewind for a second. We all know 50 Cent doesn't pull his punches. Whether it's Ja Rule, Rick Ross, or anyone who's crossed him, he's always gone all in. But this time, the stakes feel different. This isn't about rap beefs or street credibility. This is about power, corruption, and the underbelly of the industry that most people only whisper about. Over the past few months, as Diddy's world has started to unravel, from federal raids to mounting legal cases, 50 has been one of the few major voices willing to speak up. And while he hasn't dropped JayZ's name directly in every statement, the clues have been loud and clear. According to 50, the same circles that protected Diddy all these years are the same ones that JayZ's been a part of.
At least through lyrics against one another. For instance, 50 Cent released the song How to Rob, in which he seems to suggest robbing JayZ, and JayZ put out a song called It's Hot, Some Like It Hot, in which he rapped, I'm about $1, what the F is 50 Cent? Now, although they had performed together in the past, maybe patched things up or looked like things were okay, doesn't really look like they're besties, because I mean in 2011, 50 told MTV News, we don't have those kinds of relationships. These people are people I associate with. We're in the same business. We're not necessarily friends. We don't call each other for no reason. And I should tell you, if you had any doubt about their friendship, well, what did 50 Cent do just in the wake of this JayZ lawsuit? Well, he posted on Instagram a meme of him in a car with the caption, okay, I don't know what's going on, but are we going to still have the Super Bowl? Worried emoji? I'm just asking for a friend. That, of course, is in reference to the fact that for the last few years, JayZ and his company Roc Nation helped to produce the Super Bowl halftime show. But he really wasn't done there, because you know how right after the lawsuit was filed, I mean less than 24 hours, JayZ, his wife Beyonce, their 12-year-old daughter Blue Ivy, and Beyonce's mom Tina Knowles attended the LA premiere of Mufasa, the Lion King. This is what we talked about in a previous sidebar. But now, in a deleted post on Instagram, 50 Cent wrote, Jay said they said I raped a kid. Everybody get dressed, we gonna see Mufasa. Seemingly poking fun at him for going to a movie premiere in the wake of these brand new allegations. Now, to be clear, Beyonce and Blue Ivy both star in that movie. I don't think that they could have avoided the premiere, but maybe some would say you shouldn't have showed up. I don't know. But anyway, I will tell you, I interviewed body language expert Susan Constantine about how JayZ appeared at that premiere and whether it told us anything based on his body language. Take a look.
When I look at JayZ, you can see his lips pursed. That is a form of agitation. So when we look at that, when people purse or tighten their lips, it tells you a little bit about their cognitions, maybe that he's not really enjoying this as much as he's portraying when he was walking on. And what I'm looking for is a cluster. I see a horizontal stressor right across his forehead, and then he has his hand in his pocket. So we've got three things, which is a cluster. You would think that JayZ would have incorporated Beyonce into the mix by putting his arm around Beyonce's waist. We didn't see that here. So that's why I'm saying there's almost like a separation, two different frames. Beyonce, of course, alliances are with her daughter. You can see her leaning her head towards her daughter. Her daughter's out up front, is almost in a princess type of positioning. So overall, when I'm looking at this, the mannequin type of stance that Tina has, the agitation that JayZ is concealing. So what I mean by that, it's not an outward or expression. It's actually micro expressions of showing you what some of cognition might be.
But going back to 50 Cent for a second, you know what else he apparently did? Because it didn't end there. He apparently posts an AI-generated video of JayZ and Sean Combs in tuxedos getting arrested by police with the caption, I want to post this, but I'm afraid I'm going to get shot. LOL, laughing emoji. Now, one other thing I have to mention about 50 Cent before we go to other celebrities. So he sat down for an interview with personality Big Boy.
And it makes sense. These men built their empires side by side, often collaborating, sometimes competing, but always operating in the same elite spaces. Private jets, exclusive clubs, industry-only gatherings, and of course, the infamous parties. The same parties that have now been described by whistleblowers and court documents as being more than just celebrations. These were controlled environments, grooming grounds, places where the line between luxury and depravity blurred completely. And here's where it gets chilling. 50 Cent has alluded to these events being more like tests than parties. Invitations weren't just about status. They were about loyalty, about compliance, about proving that you were willing to look the other way. Because once you're in that room, Once you've seen what goes on, you either become part of it or you become a threat. And nobody wants to be the threat. Not when billion-dollar careers are on the line. Not when silence is the currency that keeps the machine running.
And it happened this week, and he addressed a lot of this. He said, I haven't had issues with Puff where I don't like him. I don't like things that he would do that make me uncomfortable. And in terms of JayZ, he said, I just hope things are all right for him internally. I mean at the crib. Because in the statement they mentioned his daughter being old enough to, because she about 13, so it's the same age as these kids they saying he did something to. And he also said the damage is already done by the allegation itself. And he even claimed that the NFL regarding the Super Bowl show, quote, will fall back in light of this lawsuit and they won't necessarily be associated to that, meaning the NFL, they won't necessarily stick with JayZ. Now, in terms of what he said about JayZ's home life, he seems to be referencing JayZ's statement that was put out after the filing of this complaint. And the statement accused Jane Doe's attorney, Tony Busby, of trying to blackmail him to settle the case before filing what he claims are false allegations. And he said the following, my only heartbreak is for my family. My wife and I will have to sit our children down, one of whom is at the age where her friends will surely see the press and ask questions about the nature of these claims and explain the cruelty and greed of people. I mourn yet another loss of innocence. Children should not have to endure such at their young age. It is unfair to have to try to understand inexplicable degrees of malice meant to destroy families and human spirit. So that was basically what 50 Cent had to say so far. But going back to Tina Knowles, remember I mentioned her, I want to talk about her for a second and talk about her, I don't want to say reaction to JayZ's lawsuit because as you'll see, she says this really wasn't her, but something very curious happened. There were reports that Tina Knowles liked an ABC7 Chicago Instagram post about the lawsuit with the caption reading, Sean JayZ Carter and Sean Diddy Combs are accused of raping a then 13-year-old girl at an after-party following the 2000 Video Music Awards, according to an amended civil lawsuit that was filed Sunday. So, did she really like that? Well, she says no. In an Instagram post, she denied liking the post, claiming her account was hacked, writing, as you all know, I do not play about my family. So if you see something uncharacteristic of me, just know that it is not me. And please stop playing with me. No weapon formed against my family shall prosper. And of course, as I mentioned, she attended the Mufasa premiere with JayZ and the family and looked in good spirits. So maybe that reaction wasn't really a reaction. But I will tell you who did react. Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal. So let me set the stage for this one. So we go to the December 10th broadcast of Inside the NBA on TNT. And there is a discussion among the group of Kenny Smith, Ernie Johnson, Shaq, and Barkley about who could face off against commentator Stephen A. Smith on the basketball court. So at one point, Charles Barkley says to Smith, you said the man isn't on your level. Stephen A. played college basketball. Now Smith defends himself, says that he's a champ, and then he says to Shaq, listen, man, do you think JayZ or... And he starts to trail off. And before he can finish his thought, Barkley jumps in and goes, probably not a good time right now. All the panelists start laughing. The crew in the background starts laughing. Smith jokes and says, you're silly, man, while shaking his head. And then Shaq gets up, walks off stage, and hides behind a pillar in a joking fashion as Ernie Johnson says, go and see if you can fix the wall, will you, Shaq? Now he ends up coming back to set without really further discussing JayZ. Just an interesting response, considering JayZ and Shaq have been photographed together through the years. But I guess what I'll say is just a lighter moment in what is a very...
JayZ, in the public eye, has always maintained a certain distance from scandal. But if you've been paying attention, the threads start to reveal themselves. He's been tied to every major power player in the business. He helped usher in the Rock Nation empire, one of the most influential entertainment conglomerates in the world. He's done business with LVMH, Live Nation, the NFL. He's sat at the same tables as global political leaders, tech moguls, and corporate giants. And through it all, he's kept his image tightly controlled. But 50's narrative is different. He's pushing the idea that this wasn't just strategy, it was survival. That Jay's rise was built not only on talent and business savvy, but also on knowing how to play the darker game. The one where silence is golden and loyalty to the circle is everything. Diddy, meanwhile, is falling. Hard. The image of the carefree mogul throwing yacht parties and dancing in music videos is long gone. What's left are serious allegations, government investigations, and a growing list of people finally speaking out. And as Diddy's empire collapses, those who stood beside him are starting to sweat. Because once the protection is gone, once the legal walls start crumbling, it becomes every man for himself. And that's exactly the storm 50 Cent seems to be predicting. He's gone on record saying that the industry has covered up a lot worse than what's already come out. He's hinted that the rabbit hole goes much deeper, that Diddy was just one face of a much larger network. A network where people like JayZ weren't just innocent bystanders, but silent partners. Maybe not in every act, but in the silence that allowed it to continue. Because in this game, you don't need to get your hands dirty to be complicit. Sometimes all it takes is looking away. And here's where it gets even more layered. JayZ has long been seen as the blueprint, the goal, the mogul that every artist aspires to become. He made the leap from rapper to business tycoon.
AC, the first amended complaint, was filed only highlights the complete lack of investigation undertaken by her own attorneys. A simple call to her father, a review of publicly available video footage and photos from that night at and after the VMAs, or a review of publicly available property records would have quickly revealed the implausibility of her allegations. But Mr. Busby has all but admitted that he declined to undertake such a basic investigation. When confronted by NBC News journalists with the series of false allegations in the complaint, Mr. Busby sought to cover for his utter lack of diligence by claiming his client would undergo a polygraph examination, an offer he seems to have abandoned since making it weeks ago. And he passed the buck, stating that another unnamed firm had vetted the allegations and that the Busby law firm would, quote, continue to vet claims and collect corroborating data to the extent it exists. So yes, that is true, based on the NBC reporting. He said that. And JayZ argues that's not adequate. That is, quote, entirely improper, and that it was Busby's job to conduct a factual investigation before he signed and filed this complaint, not afterwards. And JayZ and Alex Spiro double down on this, and they make the argument that if you look at how Tony Busby has conducted himself since Combs was arrested and indicted, it shows that Tony Busby hasn't been doing his proper due diligence. Why do they say that? Because after that happened, after Sean Combs was arrested and indicted, they say that Busby apparently published a 1-800 hotline number for potential plaintiffs to sue Sean Combs for abuse. And they say just 2 weeks later, he holds this press conference where he claimed that more than 3,000 people had contacted him through the hotline, and that he claimed he was representing 120 plaintiffs who wanted to bring lawsuits against Sean Combs. That is true. He did hold that presser. We covered this on prior sidebars. But they argue, quote, that sequence alone strongly suggests that Mr. Busby's vetting of claims was grossly deficient. Even assuming Mr. Busby set up the hotline on the same day that Mr. Combs' indictment was unsealed, the sheer number of calls that Mr. Busby allegedly received within the 2 weeks between the unsealing and the October 1st press release indicates that Mr. Busby could not possibly have vetted every caller's allegations to the extent necessary to establish the veracity before signing up 120 of them as plaintiffs. But within weeks of his press conference and in an apparent rush to be the first attorney to get claims on file against Mr. Combs, Mr. Busby filed 15 lawsuits on behalf of individuals who contacted him via the hotline in this court alone. So the basic argument was that Busby didn't properly vet these claims, that he appears to not even spoken to the accuser's father, which would have been a simple thing to do. And when he started to see cracks in this case, he should have withdrawn the complaint. And they argue that he is not engaging in his ethical responsibilities. And they even go so far as to suggest that maybe that is why he has not obtained temporary admission to practice law in this court, the Southern District of New York, for this case. Because in the law, we call that pro hoc vice. That's where you're temporarily admitted to try a case in a jurisdiction that you're not otherwise admitted to. We talked about this previously on another episode of Sidebar because he was defending himself, Tony Busby, in a prior filing. And he was basically saying, look, I'm not trying to avoid being sanctioned. I'm not trying to avoid the court having authority over me to avoid being sanctioned. And he wrote, I am a member of the State Bar of New York and am admitted to the Eastern District of New York. I intend to apply for reciprocal admission to the Southern District. Again, that's where this case is being held. The fact that I have signed pleadings and letters filed in this court does not reflect any attempt by me to evade responsibility for anything. However, JayZ and his legal team, they write here in this filing that Busby, quote, has not even sought interim admission pro hoc vice while his application is pending, despite signing more filings over the ensuing weeks. Whether that reflects...
From Marcy Projects to Madison Square Garden. But 50 is forcing people to ask the hard question. At what cost? What deals had to be made? What doors had to be entered? And more importantly, what did he have to ignore to keep climbing? The entertainment industry has always had secrets. That's nothing new. But what's different now is the climate. People are talking, victims are coming forward, whistleblowers are being heard. And the internet doesn't forget. Every photo, every video, every association, it all gets archived, analyzed, and exposed. And 50 Cent is leveraging all of it. He knows the culture. He knows how to go viral. And he knows exactly when to drop a bomb. Whether it's an Instagram caption, a podcast comment, or a full-blown press interview, he's threading a story that's starting to feel impossible to ignore. JayZ, for now, is staying silent. That's always been his style. No reaction, no public statements. Just business as usual. But that silence in the current climate is starting to feel heavy. Especially when more and more people are beginning to connect the dots between Diddy's downfall and those who remained close to him for decades. The private jet trips, the shared investments, the co-hosted parties, the quiet collaborations. It all paints a picture of closeness. And if Diddy was involved in what some are claiming, how could Jay not know? And that's exactly what 50 Cent is banking on. He's not asking fans to believe him outright. He's asking them to look, to pay attention, to question the narrative that's been sold for years. Because if there's one thing 50 knows, it's that once doubt enters the room, it spreads fast. And in an industry built on image, doubt is the one thing money can't fully erase. The power structures in Hollywood and music are shifting. The days of untouchable moguls and unchallenged billionaires are ending. Social media has flattened the hierarchy. Allegations that would have been buried a decade ago now get mainstream coverage in minutes. And people like 50 Cent, people with nothing to lose and massive platforms, are playing a critical role in that shift. He's not just trying to ruin reputations. He's trying to expose a system that protects the powerful, silences the vulnerable, and rewards those who play along. And in that system, JayZ isn't just a participant. In the 50's view, he's one of the architects. The question now is, how long can that role stay hidden? More people are speaking up. Former insiders, industry veterans, even celebrities who once benefited from the system are beginning to distance themselves. And with every new revelation about Diddy, the circle gets smaller, the excuses get thinner, the silence gets louder. JayZ might be the last man standing in that circle. But for how long? And maybe that's the real play here. 50 Cent isn't just talking. He's warning. He's letting the world know that the game is changing and the people who thought they were untouchable are about to feel the heat. He's saying in no uncertain terms that the era of secrets is coming to an end. And whether JayZ is ready or not, the spotlight is moving. So watch closely. Because the next move could change everything. The industry is cracking. The old guard is falling. And 50 Cent? He's not just watching. He's lighting the fuse.